Good morning. Hi, I'm Dr. Stacy Worley, and thank you for joining MBK Dayton's virtual Black Male Summit, Community Back to School Male Summit, I should say. With us today, we have great expectations on this election Tuesday, and I hope you're out exercising your right to vote on this election Tuesday. Today with us in our panel, we have our special guest, Mr. Kyle Strickland from MBK, Ohio, and the Kirwan Institute for the Study of Race Ethnicity. How you doing, Kyle? We also have Mr. Keith Vukasinovich. I always mess up your name, but please forgive me. CEO and president of Anansi LLC Incorporated. Thanks, Keith, for joining us.
Greetings.
We have Greg Stevens, vice president of market wealth leader for Advisory BlackRock. Thank you for joining us today, Greg.
Good morning, doctor. Thanks for having me.
And we have my good friend, Lamar Scott, director of admissions at Tennessee State University and proud brother of Omega Psi Phi fraternity. Greetings, brother.
Thank you so much. Greetings to you all.
And we have another great man of Omega Psi Phi fraternity, Mr. Derrick Thomas, Northridge Schools Student Success Administrator.
All right. Thank you.
And we always try to have an elder in the room, David Kuumba Greer from the Dayton African Elders Council. Thank you for joining us as well, Baba Greer.
My pleasure, and thank you so much for inviting me. I'm trying to get my camera fixated right. I think that might have it better. Good morning to brothers. My pleasure to be amongst you, and honor.
Gentlemen, thank you all for joining us today. And thank you all young men who are out there watching. You may be watching live. You may catch it on the replay feed, but this is for our young men, where we invest in our community by equipping our young men and boys of color in our society for success. It's back to school time. We want to make sure our young men are prepared mentally as well as they are physically. So we're going to be talking today about studying strategies, planning, mental health, and financial planning as well. So to kick it off, I want to ask a few questions today, ask you all to chime in based off your experiences. And then at the end, we're just going to see if we have any other young men who want to ask some questions as well. And hopefully we can be able to add some wisdom key nuggets for them today. So my first question is, where should a young man start in order to have a memorable college life experience? Kyle, you mind teeing that off for us today?
I'm happy to tee that off. Well, one, Dr. Worley, it's a pleasure to be here. Good morning to everybody. Excited to be here as part of the My Brother's Keeper Network and to represent MBK Ohio, but also to be here with MBK Dayton. And for all of you watching today, one of the best things you can do to start off for success in career, in college, and any sort of school is to recognize that there are others that have laid a path before you. And especially your family, your friends who have had these different experiences. and to lean on them for advice about their experiences. And it's valuable to be able to have conversation with others who've navigated through something that you're about to go through, so that it makes the process less scary, less uncomfortable, and make you understand that there are possibilities because people have made it through. I mean, I remember all throughout my school years, I was always worried about whether I was going to be able to make it to the next grade. I just didn't know whether I would be able to make it to the next grade. It seemed like a daunting task. The next step seemed like daunting, but I could always lean on family and friends about what's possible. So it's not so scary because they'll show you the types of experiences. And for those of you who might be first generation, who are doing this for the very first time, you can lean on others and friends, and you have colleagues like all of us here today to ask us questions. And one of the great things about our community is that you can reach out to a complete stranger that you don't know, but who's willing to lend a hand, because that's the work that we do. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. And so what I would just advise is reach out to family and friends who have gone through those experiences, and it won't be so daunting. And I know you'll have great expectations, but also great success.
Thank you, Kyle. And I want to go back and make sure our viewers have an understanding of why this MBK Dayton Back to School initiative is very pivotal for us. You know, we at MBK Dayton, as well as all the MBK chapters all across the United States, really focus on cradle to career. And so we want to make sure we are equipping our young men and our boys of color with all the tools that they need in their tool chest to be successful throughout not just the early years, but not just through high school, but also through college, so they can become successful men and citizens in our communities. So that's what this initiative is about today. And we want to make sure here in the Dayton market that we are preparing our young men for success. So thank you, Kyle, for that answer. I also want to throw this out there today, gentlemen. I know a lot of young men are going through anxiety and everything, and this one is geared towards our Baba Greer today. How do we combat mental illness stigma in the African-American community?
Well, first and foremost, I think the educational component needs to be conveyed at an early time period and with consistency, because unfortunately, the acceptance of one having a mental health issue is not accepted as it should be. That being because unawareness associated with apprehension, associated with individuals not wanting to be perceived that way. There's a nucleus of reasons why individuals do not accept or recognize that there may be a mental health issue. But we all have some sort of mental health issue based on things that has been inundated to us through society, through our environments that we grow up in. There's just various things that can contribute to that. So what we have to do is we have to recognize it. We have to reach out to those individuals that we feel that there may be a mental health issue, and not be judgmental. You have to be non-judgmental when you're dealing with individuals that may have a mental health issue. Be empathetic, and caring, and do our best to show that we support individuals that may have a mental health issue.
Thank you, Baba Greer. Keith, do you want to chime in on this as well? I know in your profession you see this with our young men and young ladies.
I think the issue that our elder so eloquently stated for us is that we've all been through some things, and unfortunately, popular culture teaches us that if you express anything about needing help or struggling with any kind of mental health issues, it gets perceived as weakness rather than a genuine expression of a need for assistance. We don't do that with physical health at all. If somebody says my stomach hurts, my head hurts, we get them to the doctors if we think it's a legitimate issue. But if somebody says I'm stressed, I'm depressed, I'm unhappy with life, the tendency is for Black men and young men to get told, suck it up and quit complaining. And that any expression of going through something is an indication of weakness. That is a dreadful inaccuracy, because a trauma is anything that overwhelms your nervous system's ability to process it and deal with it appropriately. And Lord knows a lot of our young folks and a lot of us older folks are going through some things that are overwhelming our nervous systems, or have been through repeatedly things that have overwhelmed our nervous system. And then we get stuck in the cycle of not knowing how to process out of that bad space. We definitely need to be encouraging our young men to tell us when they're suffering, because we see in their behavior all the evidence that we would possibly need that these young brothers are struggling with stuff. The willingness to act out aggressively towards one's peers, the hostility that at times they display towards each other or themselves. There's certainly a lot of work to be done here, and we just have to let young brothers and sisters know that it's okay to reach out for help.
Thank you. And we could really stay on that topic for a long period of time, but that's something I think that's very vital in our community that we really need to have more discussion on. Unfortunately, we don't have that in this platform, but I hope that we can follow up with that in a later date and time. Mr. Thomas, what should a student look for in a school as they're preparing for college? And this is geared towards our seniors that may be watching now or watching later as they prepare in this stretch out this final year of high school and start preparing for college. Looks like I think he's having some technical difficulties. Brother Scott, can you answer that question for us?
Yes, most certainly. In regards to trying to find the right fit, well, we call it in the collegiate experience, when we find ourselves working specifically in admissions and in enrollment, we always talk about how is it that you kind of land a plane on where you want to find home for the next 4.5 years of your collegiate experience. I always tell students to count the cost of their education. And counting that cost, it comes in a multitude of ways. Most people say follow the money, go wherever they're giving you scholarships. I would not suggest that as your forefront. I would always think about the major, that intended major that you want to study. Think about your outcome that you want to have when you're looking for that institution. But then when you talk about right fit, you have to also talk about what type of experience do you want? Like you asked the first question of the day. What type of experience do you want while you're at your college, right? So how do you get that experience out of where you are? So for instance, you have historically Black colleges and universities. You have other minority serving institutions that are Hispanic serving institutions. You have those institutions that are also PWIs, which are predominantly white institutions. You have to figure out, what type of space, as well as what type of time you want to be on, based on the major that you want to study, what outcomes you want to have in life. But then most of all, you have to make sure that you can fit in, but then that you can graduate out of the institution, right? So you have to consider the small institutions, the medium-sized institutions, and the large institutions when thinking about what's the right fit for you as a student. Whether you want to play sports, whether you want to at least go to an institution that has sports or honor societies that you're most interested in. Maybe extracurricular activities that you're also interested in. Maybe it may be the marching band, maybe it's the gospel choir or some chorale of some sort. But I think you have to think about it from the physical, from the financial, from the spiritual, and then from the educational spaces when you talk about trying to figure out what's the best fit for you in regards to your college experience. So there's a multitude of ways you can look at it, whether it be, your financial aid, your scholarships, but then also you have to take a campus tour of that campus if you're able to, if you're financially able. Take a tour of that campus that you're really saying that you have in your top 1, 2, or 3, and figure out if that space is the type of space you want to be in, the type of environment. Do they meet the kind of criteria that you may need in regards to extracurricular activities, along with student support services? Many of our students, Black and Brown descent, our students normally need more assistance with first generation college students. So there are student support services on our campuses many of the times that are there to help give support to students financially as well as emotionally, while they're there, and even mentally. So, does the institution have a strong mental health services? Do they have strong student health services on campus? And different things of that nature as well are going to be key things to help you land at your location of right fit.
Thanks.
Dr. Word, I'd love to chime in there too with just a quick note around kind of choosing your institution, because we're going through that currently with my daughter. My daughter's going into her sophomore year of high school, still a couple years out, but it's starting to come on the horizon. And I really first told her to look at, she's got to do a little bit of self-reflection of who she is as a person. Because one of the things is she's very family oriented and very close with her mother. So going to a school halfway across the country probably won't be the best end result for her. So we started saying, hey, what are some local institutions that are within a 2-hour drive from here? Heck, does she even want to stay on campus, or does she want to commute to a school? So start to do that self-reflection of who they are as a person. And then even looking hey, what are things that I want to do after school? So do I want to get into broadcasting? Do I want to get into music? Do I want to get into business? And then looking for schools where that's their, kind of their reputation or what they're known for. So then kind of thinking of hey, am I going to get the best experience? Is this going to serve me the best for what I want to do even post-college? So I literally just was having this conversation with my daughter where she's got to kind of just look inward to what she wants to get out of life and then kind of fit that along with her institutional search.
And I was actually about to ask you a question as it pertains to finance, but before I do that, I want to play some housekeeping for any of our young men or parents or legal guardians that have questions while we're on this chat. Please put it in the chat. We'll be happy to answer your question as we're having this dialogue, because we want you to be a part of this engagement that's taking place. Greg, my question for you is, what other financial advice or tips you would have for a college student in that preparation, one in your field and also as a parent?
Yeah, absolutely. So kind of the college experience, man, I'll just take a quick step and talk a little bit about myself. When I was going, kind of looking at going to school, and that, I come from a single mother background, working class, where my mom worked for the post office. So she never made a ton of money. And she always used to tell me, Greg, you need to get a scholarship if you're going to go to college. We don't have the money to pay for college, so you're going to have to get a scholarship. And I was like, yeah, sure, Mom, whatever. Whatever you're talking about. I'm in high school. I'm not paying attention to my mom. But then when I finished high school, I didn't have a whole bunch of scholarships, and I was ready to apply for school. And I was like, Mom, what do I do now? She's like, well, remember those 4 years I was telling you need to get a scholarship? Well, I was serious. So I was like, okay, what do I do now? And literally, so we just did not have tuition money. I'm the first in my family to go to school. So we didn't even have the blueprint of financial aids and student loans or all that. So I literally, right out of high school, I joined the Army. I joined the Army, be all you can be, because they were paying for college with the Montgomery GI Bill. So I didn't really even have a blueprint of like what to do after high school to finance college. So just one coming up with that plan, learning about, the FAFSA, learning about financial aid, learning about what grants are available. Like literally you can go to salliemay.com and pull up a list of grants that you may qualify for. And then what I would say lastly is looking at student loans. I mean, student loans right now are, they're in the headlines, they're in the news, a lot around, student loan forgiveness, et cetera. But like student loans can be that option to help bridge the financing gap for going to school. So there are different paths that you can take to obtain financing. So that's kind of like number one. And then I would also say is, hey, as you're going to school, a part-time job to help pay for some of those ancillary costs, whether it be your technology fees, your books, your spending money. So, having that ability to work a few hours, whether that be on campus or off campus, et cetera. So kind of putting together that roadmap of how are you going to finance school. Obviously, if we are, speaking to high school students here now, if you are still in those younger grades, again, academic scholarships, scholastic scholarships, that's all great. But looking at those other options, because some of the statistics around school right now is that the costs only go up, tuition only rises, and a lot of students are graduating with some pretty large student loan amounts because one, they did not research the other paths for financing school. So that's the biggest thing I'd say. Have that plan, do the research. And then secondly, once you're finishing school and getting that first job, knowing the rules around paying back your student loans. Student loans are one of the things that you can never get rid of. So just a quick financial tip is that you can discharge a lot of debts through bankruptcy. Student loans are the one thing you cannot get rid of through bankruptcy. So just being very responsible around those and knowing that, hey, you don't want to borrow beyond your means. How do you know what your means are if you're in high school, if you're in college? If you can literally think, again, a little self-reflection of what you want to do after school. Say you want to be a weatherman. You can literally just Google salary of weatherman and find out how much people typically earn in certain careers. And you would not want to graduate with more than the annual salary of said profession. It's a very good kind of gauge of, am I borrowing too much? So just quick tip there. But again, knowing the different paths to finance college and putting together that plan before you even go to school will set you up for much better success down the road.
Thanks, Greg. This question is posed to everybody in the room on this election day, and I hope all you gentlemen had an opportunity to exercise your vote already today. And I hope our young men who are watching, or parents, or anybody has an opportunity to exercise your vote. Take it very seriously. But this question, I really want to get input from everybody's perspective on this. In light of the Supreme Court's decision on affirmative action, how do we continue to propel our young men, and how do we attract students to schools? And I like that. Kyle, if you could kind of kick that off for us.
Of course. So happy to answer this question. So my background is as an attorney. And this is a question and something that has been really on the path and on the march for quite some time. In terms of over the years, we've seen a rollback of affirmative action policies, and many schools took steps to actually remove the policies prior to the Supreme Court decision. But what this decision means, though, is that we are really going to have to figure out ways to be creative to ensure that we are making sure that our institutions reflect the diversity of our country and our diversity of our communities. And unfortunately, for too long, the recruitment and the retention rates of Black and Latino students, especially, are not nearly where they need to be. And so with this decision, with this affirmative action decision to roll back these rights, now we have really put additional barriers to make it even harder to really understand the holistic approach that admissions processes must take in order to have a diverse pool of students that actually represent the diversity of the community. And so what it's going to require is additional steps. It has to focus not just on institution of higher education, but our pipelines from early years all the way through high school and on to college and career. We have to ensure that we're investing in our young people and especially investing in communities that have been left behind. Because if we are not putting in place policies, we are not putting in place programs, then what's going to happen is folks are going to continue to be overlooked because of the reason that we had affirmative action policies in the first place is because of historic injustices that have left people behind, that have marginalized specifically communities of color and Black Americans. And we know that these disparities continue to persist today. And so unfortunately, because of these policies, it's even harder to ensure that you're going to have a diverse pool, but it also requires each one of us as students, as parents, to be advocates for our students and to be advocates for our young people and to make sure that we're checking institutions of higher education to actually ensure that they are providing the resources and the outreach and recruitment so that every child has the opportunity to succeed and to thrive. But this also ties into the point around financial aid, right? I mean, we have to ensure that we have scholarships availability. We have to ensure that we have pipelines for folks to be able to attend these types of institutions. But it also means that more institutions have to stop being so exclusive with the ways in which they admit students. So, you know, I went to Ohio State for undergrad and I went on to Harvard for law school, and which was at the heart of the Harvard University, at the heart of this latest affirmative action case. But one of the things that if we're going to talk about getting rid of affirmative action, then we should be talking about legacy admissions. The fact is that legacy admissions, the ability for you to kind of get a leg up if somebody in your family participated in previous, was an alumni of a university or a donor of a university, then that somehow gives you that additional leg up. Well, if that's what we're going to talk about, eliminating affirmative action policies, the legacy admissions policies actually embeds and perpetuates a history of inequality, because those who've had access from the very beginning continue to pass down that access and exclude and close doors of opportunity for all communities. And so we have a lot of work to do, but I'm excited to hear what our panelists are trying to do because this is a big issue. And so we need policy change, but we also need to change our practices.
Thank you, Kyle.
Dr. Worley, if I may.
Yes, sir.
As a caveat to what Brother Strickland has conveyed, our institutions and systems are so inundated with racism. We have to continuously communicate the issues that are prevalent in today's society. The fact that there is all kind of attempts to sequester and even bring to the forefront the history associated with the Africana culture has a tendency to put us into a quagmire of not even existing or mattering. So we have to continue to communicate those things. We have to educate ourselves as well as our young people to what is real. You know, look at what is happening down in Florida. You know, what they're attempting to do and doing to the academics down there. All things are geared towards wiping out the existence and the prevalence of African Americans more so in others. So we have to be willing to continue to talk about those things, continue to edify ourselves with the history of the Africana culture, and keep the movements that are going on in society today, keep them going, support them, because they are very strong movements and they will be needed against the inequalities in society today.
Thank you, Barbara Greer. And one of the things that some of those who just joined us may not understand, when we have engagements with MBK Dayton, we always want to make sure we have and create a space for our elders to be in the room. They can always give us words of wisdom. They can give us things that you won't find in a book, things you won't find on your technology. And so for MBK Dayton, one of the key things that we have every time we do an engagement, we always want to make sure our elders are in the room or in our space. So I encourage everyone to reach out to someone with some wisdom, someone from the African American Elders Council, that you can gain a lot of things that you would never find out there in a book or technology. I thought I saw Mr. Thomas join us back, but I guess we lost him again. Anybody else want to chime in on this?
Thank you.
Brother Thomas, we're talking about in light of the Supreme Court decision on affirmative action. How do you attract and propel our young men to be successful in schools?
Well, one of the things, and guys, I apologize for the technology. We got that handled. But either way, one of the things that we're doing here in Northridge is, first of all, recognizing that we need to improve. And I think that's the first thing that we need to, and other organizations need to take a look at, and to say, what are we doing? What are we doing in our schools? What are we doing in our schools to help our students, especially students of color, to be more successful? What are we doing to attract? And I think that's where we are now. When we're looking at our staff, how does our staff look in comparison to our students? We know that students, if you look at some research, you'll see that students perform better when they have teachers and people around them on the staff that looks like them. Just simply not even having them as a teacher, but if they're in the building and they see your custodians, your teachers, your administrators, your lunch ladies, whoever it might be that looks like them, it helps our students to achieve more because they have hope then. And so what we're looking at now are what is it that we can do in our organization here in Northridge to attract more talent, to bring them in here. And so when we look at things like when we open up for hiring, are we actually going out purposely to as close as Central State or Wilberforce or what have you to attract those that staff, as well as just looking at, well, can we partnership with them and allow them to come in, do their student teaching or what have you, so that we can even groom them and get them ready to work here in Northridge. So I think with us, again, on our end, we recognize that we need help. We need to do better. And we're attacking that. Actually, that was a good part of our meetings these last couple of weeks.
Thank you, Brother Thomas. I know we could really dig into this question as well as the mental illness, the one that we had earlier, and unpack it over and over. And I know you all may have some very interesting things, but I just want to take one more individual to want to chime in on this question.
On mental illness?
No, on affirmative action. Keith, how is this really affecting our mental illness with this affirmative action rollback?
I think all of us saw this coming, as Brother Strickland had mentioned. This is not a new effort on the part of the right in America to take us back to almost an apartheid America, if they could. We've been talking about this for a long time. I think the thing that concerns me for our young folks is it can easily be perceived as a lack of willingness to even see a place for them at the table in the future. And there's a lot of unspoken truths hiding in that. These same universities that don't want to create, or the same Supreme Court system that wants us to accept that the need for affirmative action no longer exists, or that there's an inappropriate aspect to it, And as we see our universities immediately shifting and pivoting to deal with the fallout of this, it's the same Supreme Court that basically got told to go jump off a bridge by the Alabama legislature with regards to protecting the rights of Black voters. And there's not only has there been no consequence, there's been no commentary about it. So I think I'm hoping, if anything, this is a clarion call to us that we've got to be as invested in our young folks and as protective of them as we would have 50, 60 years ago, because there's a whole new need for a modern day civil rights movement where we're focused on our issues, not the generalized issues of a liberal agenda, but on our specific needs as a Black community. And I think that we need to be encouraging. Fine, there's going to be less of those sorts of financial aid opportunities for our youth. We need to be encouraging to go to institutions that do value them. There's been some amazing work done with students going to HBCUs. So, we have to fight for a place at the table, but we also need to be paying attention to which tables we're actually being welcomed at. So there's a balance. We've definitely got to continue to keep our young folks encouraged, even in dark times. And I'm dreadfully optimistic about our youth, just like it was the youth that drove the protest many decades ago. It will be the youth that stand firm for their rights as we move forward. And we need to be encouraging them to do so. The other thing we need to be doing is getting them to focus on more than just athletic pursuits to college. There are a very finite number of career paths in the NBA and the NFL, but there are a near infinite number of alternatives to that in terms of everything from skilled trades, because let's be real, not all of our young folks are going to go to college, but that does not mean they have to have a less successful life. And then we need to be educating them about what particular paths to pursue in college. And we have to accept the reality that a lot of our folks are coming from backgrounds where maybe their parents didn't go to college. Like the one brother mentioned, I was part of the first, my dad was one of 11. Of those 11, 9 had been to prison. Nobody had been to college. I was one of 2 cousins. Me and another cousin were the first ones to go to college. My parents' agenda was just get to college. They didn't have any clue what I needed to study when I got there. And unfortunately, that meant I pursued what I will say was not the best degree, because all it left me qualified for was to turn around and go back to graduate school, because there were not an abundance of jobs for folks with psychology, Black study, undergraduate degrees. So I was a well-qualified graduate student at that point. But we need to be teaching our young folks to pursue degrees that go somewhere, either in terms of 4-year terminal business or job opportunities, or getting them into college with the mindset that this is just the first leg. Like you go to middle school, then high school, that college may be the first step in a 2-part journey. But we've got to keep encouraging our young folks to be successful and to endure. The only place where success comes before work is in a dictionary. And the social media gratification of instant turnaround and everything happens overnight. Yeah, no, we as parents, we as mentors have to fight back against that, because our youth need a more realistic perception of what their path ahead of them is. And that is the reality of being Black in America, that it is not going to be an easy path, and that you must work harder than anyone who doesn't look like you to get to the places that we want them to.
Thank you. This question is for Brother Lamar. It's twofold. It's for our seniors who are in high school about to finish their last year, and by you being at Tennessee State University, one of our HBCUs, for your freshmen that are coming in, what 3 key success factors would you recommend for them, other than grades, for them to be a well-rounded student?
Yeah, when we talk about key success factors outside of maintaining your academic excellence, right? As you said, your grades, I would consider community. as one of them. A student being able to find community will help a student be able to be successful and a more well-rounded student from the time that they enter to the time that they graduate. Because when a student finds some sense of community at a university, at a college, or even at a trade school, right, they have much more of an opportunity to be able to be retained in that experience that they find themselves in. So I would say first and foremost, community. Finding the right fit in that space and whatever that environment may be for you, whatever college, university you attend. Outside of community, I would say another a key factor would be connection, right? Community and connection are two different things. Community could be you being able to be a part of an organization that kind of helps you thrive, but connections can come in a multitude of ways, right? Some of our panelists have already spoken about it, being able to find wise counsel on campus, whether that be a connection with a faculty or a staff member that is in the position or they're in the vein within the level of experience that you want to have in your future, right? So maybe you as a student study business administration, or you're wanting to study marketing at the institution. So now you want to make connection with somebody at the institution who works within the marketing department, or maybe somebody that is a faculty member in the business administration college, right? Or within that major of study. So now you not only made community, right, which is going to help you stay on the ship, it's going to help you stay afloat, but then you make connection, right? Once you make that connection to somebody who's able to help give you guidance, give you support, give you direction and insight for what it is that you want to do at your end of those 4 years at the institution, then you have to make sure that your vision is clear, right? So not only do you have to be keen on the kind of community that you have, the kind of connections that you make, but you have to make sure that your vision is clear. Right. When I was a student at Alcorn State University, my vision was quite clear. I knew that I wanted to graduate within 3.5 to 4 years. I did that. But I had to make connections and I had to build community. But I had to make sure that regardless at the end of the day, that my vision was clear. And it was clear while I was there, like you said, good brother, making sure that the student knows that academically they have to keep the ball rolling. But then also they know that regardless of what it is that they're facing or whatever it is that they're up against, that they have community that helps support them through that, right? But then they have connection. But with that being said, that final point is making sure that your vision stays clear. Regardless of what you're facing, regardless of what you're up against, you have to be reminded that you said, hey, at the end of this 4 years, I want to be here. I want to be at this particular point, at this particular space in life. And after you graduate, that's where you really want to be. Then you have to make sure you take steps. You build out an action plan. You build out a physical, management plan for your life, and you just keep the ball rolling. You keep the ball moving.
Thank you, Brother Scott. We did a lot of talk about our young men who are trying to prepare for college, and we want to make sure they stay successful while they're in college. But we have to be honest in the room. We have a lot of talented young men we just know are not going to go that pathway. Greg, what advice would you give them? Because we have a lot of great young men out there starting businesses, doing great things. What type of financial advice that you could tell them to stay alert and be successful as they go to an entrepreneur track?
Yeah, I mean, kind of some of the financial advice I'd give for anyone, whether it be college graduate, entrepreneur, anyone involved in the trades, and this is just general investing advice. I'd say the number one thing, or your biggest ally when it comes to investing, is time, and basically start early. I actually have a great slide that I'd love to share with you guys. If I can just share my screen really quickly, that will truly highlight the effect of investing early. I think it'd be great for a lot of our younger people on this call to see. Give me 1 second. I'm going to share my screen. And did the chart come over here, guys? You guys able to see a chart? There we go.
Yeah.
Thumbs up. So literally, this is something I share with everyone, especially high school students, because this is the effect of, hey, do you want to be a millionaire one day? I remember the show, Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? And it was the funniest thing to me. It's like, who doesn't want to be a millionaire? And essentially, this is the easiest recipe if you want to have $1 million by the time you hit retirement age. And it literally here shows that if you start at age 15, so sophomore in high school, and you just save $60 a month, by the time you reach 65, you'll have $1 million saved up. And this is based on basically 10% annual returns. They choose 10% because that's just about the average return of the stock market. But the difference in this chart is showing you just the different incremental ages of how much more money you'll have to save if you start later in life. So if you start at 15, all you have to do is save $60 a month. If you start when you're 25, you have to save $160 a month. If you start at 35, you have to start saving $440 a month. If you started at age 45, you need to save $1,300 a month. And basically, if we look at that total investment amount, if you started at age 15, you'd only have to save a total of $36,000. Where again, if you wait, the longer you wait, the less time you have for compounding returns to multiply, basically. The biggest thing, again, if you take anything from this, is that time is your biggest ally. And the earlier you start, the better chance you have of reaching your goals. And that's basically like, as Albert Einstein said, like compound interest is the 8th wonder of the world. He who knows about it earns from it. He who doesn't pays it. So again, best thing I can tell people is to start early.
That's good.
The second thing I would share with you guys is about just kind of knowing the different options to start investing. It's a big difference between saving and investing. A lot of us growing up, again, I can just go back to my own background. My grandparents, they were savers. They taught my mom to be a saver. And saving is great. You put your money aside and you'll have that money, it's pretty much relatively safe. If you have emergencies, you have an emergency fund. You may have money for a goal down the road. But being a saver doesn't necessarily build long-term wealth or will get you to those bigger goals in life. Investing obviously comes with different levels of risk, but investing will help you to build that longer-term wealth over time. So learning about investing, whether it's as simple as buying stocks, buying bonds, buying a little bit of both. Learning to where can you start investing. There is a ton of resources available to people now where you can literally just start investing right on your cell phone. That's all you really need right now to open up an investing account. I advise young people to, again, hey, well, I don't have any money to even start investing, but you can always start learning about it at any time. My son, he's been learning about investing since he's 8 years old. He doesn't have obviously a job or any income other than what I give him, but we've always started to say, hey, whatever you earn, we're going to put half of it aside and start investing it. You get to play with the other half. So what have I kind of been pointing him towards? Like, again, you can start learning about this stuff anywhere. You pick up your phone, you can go to sites like NerdWallet, you can go to bankrate.com, and they'll show you just the different options for opening up these types of accounts. After you open up an account, again, for our high school students on here that maybe have that part-time job, one of the things I advocate is, hey, if you've got a part-time job and you're making just easy number $100 a week, how easy is it to just put away $20 of that and keep the other $80? And basically, that's following a 20% rule. You earn money, you put away 20% of it for investing. And that is a lesson you can take throughout your entire life, is that, hey, I pay myself first. That 20%, I'm putting that away to build my long-term goals. That other $80 in high school, maybe it's going towards clothes, maybe it's going towards sneakers, maybe it's going towards a date. But as you get older, college and into the adult world, real working life, that 20% is helping you to build your financial security. That other 80% is going towards your bills, your rent, your mortgage, etc. So get into that have it early. Put that 20% aside. Open up a brokerage account. Once you have a brokerage account open, the easiest thing people ask me, is like, hey, where do I get started? What do I buy? And I tell people, if you're getting started investing in stocks, look at companies Like most people have an iPhone in their pocket, right? So start looking at companies like Apple. Do you have an Instagram account, Facebook account? Start investing in Facebook or companies Meta now. Do you go to Target? Like look at companies like Target. Start with companies places you frequent. Nike, like I'm the biggest, fan of Jordan sneakers. Buy Nike stock, stuff like that. So it's easy to get started. You just have to want to start. And then lastly, I'll stop here before I go on a long diatribe again. Like I said, time is your biggest ally. So start early.
Very good.
Thank you. As we are getting close to the end of our time, we know a lot of our college young men are getting ready to go away to school. Kyle, this question is for you. How do we have an election coming up. How do we prepare our young men that are away from school? What advice would you give them when they're away from school? How would they vote successfully?
Of course. So this is so important, especially on election day. So always make sure you check your voter registration first. Make sure you're registered to vote, and then check your voter registration to ensure that you're updating it throughout the process. Because especially college students, if you're moving, you have to ensure wherever you're registered to vote, whether you're registered to vote on campus or registered to vote back home, you need to make sure you're checking your voter registration so that you know. And one of the best ways to do this as well is to be able to vote early, and whether you vote by mail or absentee, so you vote early and send that into the Board of Elections so that they have that. But you can go to voteohio.gov to check out this information. And so today is election day. It's a special election, August 8th, 2023. It's a special election. There's one issue on the ballot, is issue 1. And this is an election where we have to ensure that everybody exercises their vote and their voice. And the fact is that, some people, they hear about elections, they hear about politics, they say, it's not for me. I don't want to hear it. That's just not what I'm all about. Well, we got some news for you. Is politics is about everything, and it impacts you. It impacts your voice, and it impacts your vote. And it's one of the most powerful ways to exercise your voice is by focusing on your vote. But make sure to check your voter registration and ensure that you're registered to vote, and then check and talk with your friends and family to ensure that they are also registered to vote. And then vote on election day or vote early. But I just encourage everybody to be involved. Civic engagement and voting is a critical aspect of how we have rights, and we can fight and protect our rights. And it's important that our young people cast votes as well, because too often some people say it's not for me and they don't vote. And the last thing we want to be able to do is take away your right to vote, and instead have those who are in power who are more than happy to have you not vote. We don't want that. We want to make sure everybody can exercise their rights. So go to voteohio.gov and check your voter registration, check your polling place. And then if you're at a university or a college, you can actually work with the administration there to see where you are registered to vote. So wishing everybody the best on this special election day. And I hope if you haven't yet, this is your reminder, go out and vote.
Thanks, Kyle. And gentlemen, as we go around the room real quick, if you would what's the major takeaway you would like our students to receive from this conversation today? And I start with Baba Greer.
Well, the first thing that I would like to share is know that God's master plan is structured it's a generational structure. And things are to be passed on from one generation to the next generation, which is that structure of eldership. Those individuals that have lived longer than you have obtained wisdom based on the journey and the lifestyle that they lead. And if they lead a lifestyle of righteousness, then that means that they acquire the wisdom that will help them to persevere through life in the changes of society. society is unfortunately is sequestered in Eastern Europe culture, and everything is being done to make sure that the Africana culture does not be embedded in the institutions and the systems. They're doing all they can to remove it. Listen to your individuals that are elders. Listen to individuals that live a righteous life and have wisdom so that you can persevere by picking those things up that are applicable to your life and your lifestyles as you go along your journeys.
Thank you, Brother Scott.
Yeah, I would say I'm the youngest of the group, but I think it's so important that young men, as you start to think about life, you think about what do you dream, what do you expect, what are your goals, but most of all, who are you? Um, we were talking about how it is that some young African American males many of the times think that we're only a football player, we're only a basketball player. We're only as good as what our hands and our feet can do for us. But it takes a mind to be able to be a quarterback. It takes a mind to be able to be a point guard. It takes a mind to be able to be a defensive back. It takes a mind, right, to be able to be a power forward, what have you. So with that mind that you have, take it, increase yourself in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding. As our elder statesman just communicated, we should always lean not unto our own understanding, but in all our ways we acknowledge God and He'll direct our path. But He's also set people before us that went before us, that have gone farther than we've gone before, and that can help set a precedence in our life and help give us insight, help give us direction, help give us support. But most of all, I would just want to say as I close is that regardless of what you're up against, regardless of what you face in life, it cannot defeat you. You are greater than anything that's up against you. You are greater than any contradiction that people may place on you. You're greater than any affirmative action, lawsuit, case, whatever that may be. Whatever it is that's suppressing voter rights, you're greater than it. So because you're greater than it, you have to be above it. So regardless of when it comes to you, just be above it. Continue to grow in knowledge, wisdom, and understanding, and you'll go places that others will never be able to go. You'll understand things on a higher level than people have ever been able to perceive before. So with that being said, I want to just say thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you, Brother Thomas.
All right. I think for me, I would tell them that you are powerful, that you are important, that there is greatness that lives in you. The very own Spirit of God is living within you. So you are very powerful. And what I would also say is, don't be afraid to fail. Be courageous. Set your goals, like the gentleman said before me. Set your goals, go after them, but don't be afraid to fail. Off of my experience, I would say through those failures, I have learned quite a lot, and greatness comes out of that for those who just continue to persevere. So continue to persevere and don't be afraid to move forward. Some things that I would do also that I've done that has really helped change my life is I also say get an accountability brother. An accountability brother for me, what that did for me was that I have actually 2 accountability brothers that I can share my deepest thoughts, my anything that I need to share with them. I'm very transparent, and they are to me. And what that does is we take the word of God and allow the word of God to counsel one another and help each other together to move forward. And that has been just extremely helpful in whatever I'm trying to endure at the time and persevere through. So get an accountability brother. Also, think about, again, as setting goals. There's some gentlemen that's on today that's just dynamite. You know, we've heard some great things from each one. We can feel their passion. You know, I hope notes was taken down. Just look back over those notes and think of one or two things that you can do in your life that you can change just that little bit each day. Just work on a little bit at a time, and just see how over time your life changes. I think about the gentleman that just spoke about finances, and I'm thankful that you showed that chart. That's powerful. But think about finances, because a lot of us, I'm not going to say all of us, but a lot of us grew up poor. We didn't have it. And so there are certain things that we just don't know. And when you don't know, it can cost you. And so finances is one of those areas. I mean, I lived next door to Mr. Worley. And at one point I thought I was going to lose my house because I simply didn't know what an escrow was. And I denied having it. And then later found out that was a big mistake. So just take the knowledge that has been shared today as well, and see about in your life, what is one small change that you can make, so that each day you work on that. And then I would say, for the last thing, going back to the spiritual side of things, meet God every single day, meet with him, set a time that is your sacred time. I think for me and my wife, that has been powerful for us, that early in the morning, we're meeting up, we're reading the word, and we're praying. And it changes things, having that relationship with God, because again, there's greatness in you. And when you hear that little still voice, sometimes listen to that voice, because it's going to tell you where you should go. So that's what I would say, brothers. Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Thomas and Greg, Keith, and then Kyle, and then we'll close it out.
Absolutely. First, let me thank you for having me on today. This was an absolute honor to be able to present to the group. And listen, I'll keep it short. And I like to tell everyone, man, life comes at you fast. Life likes to throw curveballs at you. So having a support system in organizations like MBK, where you could have people you can reach out to for advice, for guidance, for mentorship, will set you up for future success way more than, having to go the road alone. Listen, together you go far. You want to go fast, go alone. But if you want to go far, you go together. So, I think this group, and again, questions, concerns, anything, you have people you can reach out to right here.
Okay.
I think in closing, I would tell young folks, work hard in your youth to build a future, or else you will work hard your entire life to make up for the fact that you did not invest in your youth. Focus on personal development. You are the only resource that you always have. And pay a close attention to your peer group. If all the folks you hang out with look like their life isn't going to head in the right direction, probably time to find some new friends. There's an old expression: if you can't change the folks you with, then change the folks you with. We oftentimes do not go much further than our peer group. So you need to be paying attention to who you're associating yourself with, and always try and aim for folks who are going to be on a moving forward in life trajectory. That might mean it's a little bit lonely at times, but it is better at times to trudge forward by yourself until you find that peer group that is on the same mission than it is to get led in the wrong direction by just going with the flow of things. Because a lot of times young folks get themselves into trouble, not because they were actively trying to do anything wrong, but they just went along with somebody else's bad idea. So be the master of your fate, if you will, rather than getting dragged in the direction that somebody else has for you. I guess that closing thought is that if you will not choose your direction in life, somebody else will choose it for you.
Thank you.
I'll keep it short. Follow your dreams, chase your dreams, but just like on this panel, do it together. And that's the work of my brother's keeper. I am my brother's keeper. I am my sister's keeper. Not only do you take this advice to follow your dreams, but you can be a role model and inspiration to others to follow you along the way. And we do this together. So chase your dreams, do it together, and be your brother's keeper, be your sister's keeper. And we're just so grateful to be here today with you all. Take care.
Thanks, Kyle. And in closing, to all the parents, grandparents, young men who are watching, sisters, cousins, whoever, we thank you for sharing this time with us today for MBK's Dayton. Great expectations for a great year. We are here. We hear you. We want you to know that MBK Dayton has a passion for our young men. We want to make sure they're successful, whatever pathway that may be, whether it's in high school, college, trade school, or entrepreneurship, whatever it is, or military. We're here. Seek us out. We are our brother's keeper. We are our sister's keeper. Thank you for joining us. You can follow us on our MBK Dayton YouTube page or other social media pages that are rolling at the bottom of the screen. We hope we've said something to make your day better. Have a great school year, young men. And those who are with us, thank you for joining us in this journey.